Welcome to Community Connections, brought to you by Synapsity, featuring conversations, stories, and interviews with Ottawa's leading changemakers. Enjoy this episode. On this episode of Community Connections, we welcomed Ecology Ottawa's Executive Director, Alice-Irene Whittaker, to talk about some of the work that her and her team are doing.
Into a fresh episode of Community Connections, and today I am so proud to welcome our guest, Alice-Irene Whittaker of Ecology Ottawa. And Alice-Irene is an environmental leader who is passionate about citizen action and caretaking. She has been in the role of Executive Director of Ecology Ottawa for the past 8 months. She has led teams and volunteers in a diversity of organizations, from small grassroots NGOs to large international charities. Most recently, Alice-Irene was on the executive leadership team of the Natural Step Canada, a systems change charity, and the Director of Communications at the Smart Prosperity Institute, an Ottawa-based national think tank. She also co-founded and was Executive Director of Mother Nature Partnership, a volunteer-powered charity working at the intersection of reducing waste and advancing gender equality. She's a natural storyteller, a published essayist, spokesperson on national media outlets, and is writing a book about the human experience of regeneration and care. She is the creator and host of her own podcast, Reseed, which we'll put a link into so people can check that out. And it's a podcast about repairing our relationships with nature and each other. Awards include being longlisted for the CBC Nonfiction Prize and being the recipient of a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Innovation Award. She is a proud member of groups like Régéneration Canada and Women for Nature. Alice-Irene is on a lifelong, imperfect journey of environmental action, including permaculture gardening, reducing waste, protest, and other actions to do her best at this moment in time. She's working to raise 3 children to be active citizens and stewards, and we love that at Synapsity. That's what we're all about. So welcome into the podcast, Alice-Irene.
Thank you, Nick. I'm so happy to be here.
So that's a great bio. You've obviously created a lot of change throughout your different pursuits. Are there any experiences that stand out thus far in your career?
That's such a good question, good reflective question. Absolutely. There are a few things that stand out, and I think it's just nice hearing that, like making change. I think change makers, we're working so hard and there's so many of us, but it can be tireless or thankless sometimes. And it's really nice to kind of reflect and think back on and imagine that it's making an impact. For me, some of the standouts, I think I've seen over my career the change from environment and social justice being considered completely opposite or not connected, at least by a lot of people, to seeing those come together and the understanding that they exist together, and that how we treat human beings is interconnected with how we treat the environment, and that the struggles are related, and that we can also make progress together when we join different forces. So seeing that over the course of my career and helping in my small way to contribute to that through things like Mother Nature Partnership that I founded that worked at that intersection, for example, really stands out. I'm incredibly proud of founding that charity and the impact that we had with it, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that. So that was a highlight for me. And then making the leap into environmental work from more of the gender equity and social justice side, that for sure was a highlight for me when I moved over to environmental think tank for a few years and immersed myself in that world and became more knowledgeable about the environmental space. Was definitely one of those moments following my heart as well as my mind at the same time. And that led me to my role at Ecology Ottawa, which is one that stands out for me as well too. And I'm so thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about all the stuff going on at Ecology Ottawa. I know there's a lot. But first, tell me about this podcast. I listened to a few episodes. I'm going to tee up a few more. And like I said, we'll put a link into the show notes for this one. I love the name Reseed. So tell us a little bit about the podcast and the inspiration there.
The inspiration is really about picturing all of these different people who based on their unique geographies or passions or the issues they care about, the resources available to them, are reseeding the way we live, like planting new seeds, not just that, but also uprooting what we don't like. So the extractive, exploitative system that we're currently living with, pulling those roots out and reseeding new ways of being, or maybe connecting with old ways of being. So that can be regenerative farmer. It can be an artist who's expressing climate grief through their music. It can be an environmental activist who's making sure that we're having conversations about racial justice at the same time. It can be a fashion designer who's using old materials and giving them a new life in the way that they design fashion. So it's these really long form, I think, thought-provoking conversations with all of these different people. And when you picture people reseeding their own sort of patch of land that they steward, or the apartment that they live in, whatever it is, that all of it does start to add up and make a large change in all of the corners of the world where people are doing this work. So I've just been thrilled to have these conversations and see the audience grow around it, and get to go really deep into the world of someone, who's rewilding the ocean, for example, and spend an hour in the world of rewilding the ocean. And I feel like a better person for it at the end of it.
Yeah, you've had some great guests, and congratulations on being up to episode 35 so far. I know that's a lot of work, and
Yes.
being a podcast host myself too. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Any favorite episodes so far?
Very much so. The ones that stand out for me, one was with Tamara Lindemann, who's the front singer and composer of Weather Station, and her album Ignorance won all of these awards, best album, and it's a climate change album. And that conversation brought together so many interests for me: climate action, climate change, art, love for birds. So that one was definitely a beautiful conversation. Speaking with Aja Barber was such a highlight. She writes about consumerism and capitalism in fashion. And wow, what a fantastic conversation that was as well. So those were a couple of my favorites. Grace Nosek as well. She talked about like kind of youth climate action and engaging people through like fan fiction and art again. And yeah, they're just such incredible people, but it is hard to pick a favorite. I will mention one more, which was my very first one ever, which was with Chuck Odenigbo, talking about making environmentalism for everyone and racial justice in the environmental movement. And there's something special about it being my first conversation, but also it remains one of those powerful ones that stands out for me now, and that it spanned from oceans to cities to human beings. So it was a really thought-provoking conversation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry to put you on the spot there. I know it's probably hard to pick a favorite there, right? When there's so many good ones, but
Yeah, I'm stopping myself from going through each and every one of them.
absolutely. Yeah, no, so fantastic. We'll look forward to more and invite folks to go check that out. So I'm also curious about the Mother Nature Partnership that you co-founded. That project envisions a world where every woman is free to be a steward of her own life and a caretaker of the environment. So tell us a little bit more about that project.
I was at a conference in, I want to say 2009, and was working with someone else on thinking about how can we bring different issues together, like environment and gender equity is what we were looking at. And it doesn't sound that novel now, but at that time, there really wasn't a lot of attention that these struggles were combined, like I mentioned earlier. And not only that, it was, we just don't have time for it. Like we don't have time in the environmental movement to also be thinking about how this affects equity, for example. So we were having this conversation about how do you bring them together. And through that conversation, I came up with the idea of providing access to reusable and environmentally conscious menstrual supplies for women and girls in Cameroon as well as in Canada, and how that would be a way not just to reduce waste, and it does reduce a huge amount of waste over the lifetime of someone who menstruates, but also it could give access to women and girls to fully participate in life. So there were in that with my partner, who is from Cameroon, she was reporting to me about farmers and schoolgirls who couldn't actually go to school or couldn't go work because they didn't have access to supplies. So that's where that was an enabler for them to go and flourish and fully participate in life in whichever way they chose. So over the course of that project, it grew from that idea to a registered charity. We were awarded a Bill and Melinda Gates Innovation Grant, which I was incredibly proud of, and went to Cameroon when I was pregnant with my first child, actually, and got to see the projects firsthand, meet the girls and women, because it was all locally led, and see the impact that it had when people have not just the access to supplies, but also education and information. So that was, for me, definitely an immense accomplishment, I felt, and just great to be a part of something. And it wasn't just part of Mother Nature Partnership, but there was a larger movement that grew over that time around menstrual equity and reducing environmental waste and connecting the two.
Yeah, no, congratulations. What a fabulous project. You know, sometimes we take those little things for granted and access to things that we think, oh, everybody in the world has access to this, but small things can really make a huge difference. So congratulations on that. And we'll put a link there so people can check that out a little bit more. So let's talk a little bit more about Ecology Ottawa. You're coming up on your 1 year as Executive Director in August. So congratulations. How's the experience been so far?
Thank you. The experience has been so rewarding. Taking this role was, for me, really one of those moments when you follow your heart and you follow your head at the same time. And I really wanted to, like I mentioned, I was working at the national level on environmental policy and wanted to more closely connect with community-led environmental action. I am in my heart an activist and really wanted to make sure that I was playing a leadership role in organizing people and moving people to take action in their own communities and connecting with environmental issues in the places where we interact with them the most, which is in our cities and communities. The experience has been very fulfilling. I'm just honored to work with a fantastic team of really thoughtful and talented people. And beyond that, there's the board of directors. There's an incredible movement of people in Ottawa who support us and have for many years, and who take action, who engage with us, who propel this work, volunteers. So I found that really, really heartening, and it feels like a dream come true, honestly, every day to be able to work on the issues that I care about most. Like, we're talking about, rewilding, we're talking about pollinator gardens, trees, we're talking about climate action, people-powered movements to influence like true systemic change at the city level and beyond. So it's just been been a real treat, and I continue to enjoy it and look forward to much more time doing this work.
Some fabulous stuff going on there, and there's not a week that goes by that someone's not saying to me, hey, I volunteer at Ecology Ottawa, or I've been to one of their events or programs. So great work there. And I'm wondering, because there's a lot going on, you've got your active city, living city, renewable city. So in your role, how do you find juggling all these?
It definitely is a daily practice of saying, okay, what is most important today and most urgent? And because we are working on really the whole of the ecology of the city, and that includes people, our ecology, as well as creatures and ecosystems, because it is so there is potential for it to be so extensive, and we're a small team. We have to every day make decisions about, okay, what is the greatest need environmentally in our city right now? Where can we truly make a change? What do we have the resources and the skills and the knowledge and the time to be able to dedicate to this? And so that means that we can't do everything, which is really hard, I think, for all of us. But also, I'm sure all people who are working on mission-driven work, is there's so much potential and there's so much need for change, and you can't do it all. So, but do need to say no so that it's sustainable and so that you are able to focus. So, in my role, in terms of those three different cities: active city, living city, and renewable city, part of it for me is the talented team that's working on specific areas. So I work with people like William Van Geest, who works on our Living City work, or Cheryl Randall, who works on our climate change work, and they're organizers working in those areas. So it's not a one-person show. And like I mentioned, there are volunteers and others who are supporting that work. So that's part of it too. And that's part of our whole philosophy as an organization, is engagement organizing, where you are organizing other people that spread that impact and that influence through getting engaged. And then there's, of course, are just the realities for me of just working really hard and prioritizing as best I can between the many demands of an executive director job, which anyone who's done it knows that is a constant juggling act. It's hard work, but it's worth it because we believe in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much going on. So much to kind of motivate you in the mornings and get you going. So
Yes.
let's talk trees a little bit. We just had our tree canopy workshop, our Synapsity session on that, and we were happy to have Ecology Ottawa out for that one. And you folks just released your tree program report, and the program was a huge success with close to 50,000 tree seedlings given away to Ottawa residents. So tell us a little bit about this program.
Thanks. And that was a great event, by the way. And it really underscored for me, the event you hosted, how many different people and groups are working on restoring the tree canopy across Ottawa, and that the only way we're going to do this is by having many of us working together. So that was my biggest sort of takeaway from that event. For us, trees are so central to our work and at the heart of our team, but also I know our supporters. People are really passionate about trees in Ottawa, and of course we know they're under threat, increasingly under threat. So the more work that we can do on trees, the better, to restore our tree canopy, which we know has many benefits, climate benefits, as well as, mental health for human beings, and, providing ecosystem services and providing habitat, all of the things that not just trees, but forests do. So with that sort of intent, we did set out on this 3-year campaign, which we're so proud of, which we wrapped up. And this was, really had 2 goals. One goal was to work towards restoring the Ottawa tree canopy through individual plantings, but also to educate people and to cultivate an ethos of care and knowledge around trees and a connection with them. And really this huge network of people who are planting trees across the city. So we did, like you say, distribute tens of thousands of trees, and that was in urban areas, suburban, rural, so all across Ottawa, engaged tens of thousands of Ottawans on it. And not just were we distributing trees, and they were native species, including fruit-bearing trees, and really finding the right tree for a certain person's home. But we were also sharing resources. So how to care for a tree, how to plant a tree, and also the importance of trees and urban trees in particular, and the importance of this issue in Ottawa. So we heard from the respondents to our survey, from people who received trees, that over 80% of them have had their trees survive so far, which is just so heartening. About 80% of them learned a lot and shared that they learned about the importance of trees and how to care for them, and felt like they were more able to do so after being involved in our project. So it's something that we are immensely proud of and want to just keep building on. There literally is not a day that goes by, and Susan Hickman on our team was just saying this week, that people aren't reaching out to us and say, can we do a tree giveaway? Where do we get trees? Like, there's this real hunger for trees and a real connection to them that human beings have and that Ottawans have. So that's something we're really keen to keep being a part of and to keep as a central part of our work.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. It's nice to hear that success rate, and that folks are getting excited. And, we know we're losing trees, so it's great to hear that people are getting excited about planting them. We can't talk trees without talking a little bit about the Tailwind disaster. We know we lost close to 25,000 trees there. Tell me a little bit about Ecology Ottawa's response and what you've been up to kind of make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that was tragic. Earlier this year, by conservative estimates, 25,000 trees coming down. And the only reason that this was known and did become, a huge citywide effort to sort of find out who's accountable and hold those to account, it was because of residents. It was residents who reported it and continued raising the alarm that this was happening in the dead of night without the proper permits at first. And it is sort of a complicated scenario where it changed throughout, where originally there weren't the appropriate permits, and then eventually there was an exemption where the owners were saying, well, now it's going to be used for agriculture, and that allowed them to bypass the tree bylaw. So like you say, we really need to make sure this doesn't happen again. And there are other spaces like this that will be under threat. What we did was collaborate with other organizations. So there were other organizations, great organizations across Ottawa that work on protecting ecosystems, protecting trees, and worked to galvanize people so that they were, contacting their city councilors. They were signing a petition, calls, emails. We had, I think it was around 1,000 people email their city councils and the Environment and Climate Change Committee to say, we don't allow this. We can't stand for this. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen in Ottawa. We need to be planting trees, not cutting down the ones that we have. So in addition to that, there was a rally, there was a concert, there were delegations to city, to the Environment and Climate Change Committee as well. So it was a mix of, and this is very Ecology Ottawa, it was a mix of mobilizing people, sharing information, saying this is happening, here's the information that you need about this, and now here's how you take action, and here's how you make sure that you know who to contact, so you're influencing decision makers. So it's that mix of people power and then systemic change at once, which we believe in deeply. So we want to make sure that that this doesn't happen again, like you said, and this is definitely a fight that needs to keep happening. And we do need to make sure too that residents are reporting anything that they see like this, because again, that's the only way that we can then mobilize people, and others can as well.
Yeah, no, it's great that residents are getting more involved, and that's something that came out of our Synapsity session too, was maybe some sort of forest watch,
Yes.
with drones who maybe wanted to take some pictures. Obviously, we know that is something that's evolving. So, we'll cross our fingers that something like that doesn't happen again. And we know that the folks at Ecology Ottawa and the rest of the community will be on watch. So when
Yes.
we talk about trees, we can't help think about air quality. We know that's a big part of that. We're getting hotter summers and earlier summers, it seems. We're feeling the effects of forest fires across the Canada. And I know that Ottawa's air quality is a big topic. So Ecology Ottawa has a volunteer-led initiative called Breathe Easy. What's that all about?
We've had over 2020 and 2021 a community-led air quality monitoring project, which as you say, is called Breathe Easy. Both years, we had over 100 volunteers involved going across the city and using air monitors to keep track with the data of what the air quality is like in different neighborhoods. And in particular, in 2021, we cross-referenced that and looked deeper into air quality and how that relates to the income level of a neighborhood to understand how this interconnects with equity. We know there are huge health implications to poor air quality. There's a whole host of diseases and other afflictions that we can face because of poor air quality. So air pollution can lead to disease, increased hospitalizations, stroke, heart disease, lung cancer, respiratory infections, et cetera, and often there are people who are more vulnerable to that, either from age, so the elderly and children, or if we look at, again, equity considerations, the most marginalized in society can also face increased risk from this. So it's important environmentally as well as from a human health perspective as well. So what we do is volunteers track this data, as I mentioned, accumulate it, and then we share a report that shows what the air quality is like in different neighborhoods and at different times of day. And we make that available. And then the idea is that we want to push to improved air quality across Ottawa and making sure that there is equal access to clean, fresh air. And we're really thrilled that we'll be launching next week, actually, our 2023 version of Breathe Easy. So we'll again be mobilizing volunteers and going into the third year of this with funding from Trottier Foundation, which we're really grateful for. So this is something that we continue to do, and we really like the element too of community-led work like this, where people are getting really engaged in their local ecology and are a huge part of this, and we could not do it without our volunteers. So this is something that people can look out for, because we will be launching it, and then the data from 2023 will be coming out, and we can actually look at how this has changed, if it has changed over the last 3 years.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting. You can't change what you don't measure, right? So it's really important that we get that data. And, as someone who has asthma, it's so important to have that good air quality. We want to be doing stuff after work, being out in nature. So it's hard when things are smoggy. So thinking about air quality, Ecology Ottawa has petitioned for electric school buses in Ontario. And I was shocked to read on your blog that only 20 of 20,000 school buses in Ontario are electric. What an opportunity to help the environment. So tell us, how is Ecology Ottawa pushing this initiative along?
Isn't that so shocking? Like, it doesn't make sense, but like you say, there is such an opportunity. Like, just think of all of the school buses every single day going out across our city, across our province. And if we transition those to become a fully electric fleet, there's an immense potential there to help, again, not just the environment and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also to improve health outcomes. And I love that you mentioned, asthma. I have 3 children, and my middle child, Julian, he has asthma. And immediately when I started at Ecology Ottawa, this is one of the projects that spoke to me the most, because if I think from just the human perspective of sending your child off with asthma to stand beside school buses that are pumping diesel into their faces, as well as obviously beyond into all of our air. And at the moment when we're facing, respiratory health crises and pediatric health crises in the hospitals, it just does not make sense to continue like this. And so we are pushing for a fully electric school bus, along with many, many others across not just Ontario, but across Canada. And there are immense benefits to come if we do so. What we're doing is we are encouraging people to contact their MPPs. We have a petition. We have a report out where people can learn more about not just the harms of the current system, but how we can move to become fully electric. And this is one of those ones where it's not a city decision per se to move to electric school buses. There are different players involved, and that includes school boards, that includes the transportation consortia. But there is an impact that we can have by speaking up to our MPPs, by telling city councillors that this matters to us. We do a lot of work around education around this. We're doing booths so that people can learn more about it. We do a lot of media on this topic as well. So it's something where we're looking again to educate people and get people fired up about it, so that they're speaking out when they feel moved to. Maybe they have a child like mine. And then we're also looking at making that sort of systems change by influencing decision makers, so that they do this not just for the environmental impacts, also the health, like I mentioned, and because there are economic benefits to do so over the long term when we go electric.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer, and let's hope
Right?
let's hope at this time next year there's more than at least 20, and there's a bit of a snowball effect there.
Absolutely. And I should mention too, like the idea is that kids use school, if it's the kids that need school buses, use electric school buses, but it's not like electric is going to solve all of our problems. We also want to make sure that our neighborhoods are more walkable, and that kids can safely get to school by other ways like walking and biking, and that we have a variety of options which are climate friendly for kids.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great work there. So, when it comes to city building and holding our city council to task on the environment, Ecology Ottawa has done some fantastic work, from analyzing the climate change master plan to pushing for more environmental funding in the city's budget and advocating for meaningful dialogue on the Lansdowne 2.0 issue. What are some of the things you're most proud of that Ecology Ottawa is doing to help push the city of Ottawa to more climate action?
One of the great accomplishments of Ecology Ottawa, and this is before my time, was propelling a movement that encouraged the city to declare a climate emergency declaration back in 2019. And it's really only when you can formally say that and declare, yes, this is an emergency and we need to act as such, that you can push ahead true climate action. So that's something that Ecology Ottawa was really at the forefront of, and something that we can be really proud of. And of course, there are countless people that were part of that. Like, whenever we say Ecology Ottawa, it's not just the formal walls of an organization or virtual walls of an organization. It's the whole community, the Ecology Ottawa community that pushed for that. And so that happened in 2019. We did see this year in the 2023 budget some funding for the first time dedicated exclusively to climate action. And that's a good step, but it is not nearly enough. So that's what we want to push for now, is making sure that you have the climate emergency declaration. That's fantastic. You have a really solid climate change master plan. That's fantastic. And a ton of work went into that. And it is really a very good plan. What we need to do now is making sure that we are funding it in very ambitious ways and that we are implementing it. So we're not just saying these things, we are truly acting on them. And saying, yes, we are in that emergency, and now we need to act as such. So what we're pushing for now is to fully fund and implement those plans. And there's, just increasing evidence, obviously, as if we didn't know it already, in the weather, in the wildfires, like you mentioned, that climate change is truly here, and that we'll just be seeing worse storms and more threats to life in Ottawa. And so it is now time to step up to that emergency that was declared and make sure we're fully funding and implementing the plan.
Absolutely. Every day that goes by, we need more and more and more. So, congrats on that work, and we'll hope that the Energy Evolution Plan kind of continues on, and Ecology Ottawa keeps pushing those councillors.
We will be pushing for sure.
So, this is the time of year we all start to think about our gardens, and Ecology Ottawa has a great new pollinator garden program that just launched, which is helping to protect our city's bees. So, tell us a little bit about this program and your greater drive for more rewilding across Ottawa.
Yes. So rewilding in general is something that I'm really encouraged by. And there's so many examples across the world that it can be really hard to find hope, I think, environmentally, and it can be easy to look at all of the threats and the dangers and the losses. It is really heartbreaking, the losses that we're seeing environmentally, and the loss of nature and biodiversity. But when you look at rewilding, and when people are not a force for bad, but really a force for good with nature, and cultivating spaces that can flourish and become wild again, replanting native species that maybe have dwindled. It is a really beautiful thing, and it does give me a lot of hope. So that in general is some reflections on rewilding. And if you just imagine what Ottawa could be, like just flourishing with green life, with biodiversity, that gives me that deep feeling of, this is why we do this work, and this is what could happen, and that where we can start to think of ourselves as really positive for the planet. For us, these pollinator gardens are one small part of that. So we're really excited to have started planting 3 pollinator gardens with 3 different communities across Ottawa. And we just started planting them this month. So we're just launching this. It's the first time that we've done this. And it is really a close relationship with communities, where they will be the caretakers of these pollinator gardens over time. So it's not, again, just us alone. It's never just us alone. It's working in partnership and creating these pollinator gardens that can provide more diversity and more biodiversity as well, just by being there, and then also many benefits to communities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great concept, and it's so inspirational to think, hey, we can get some of these things back, and we can kind of help nature flourish a little bit more. Sometimes we just need to leave it alone, let it go wild. So I know you've got a few podcast episodes dedicated to that, so invite people to check that out and dive a little deeper. Speaking of making change, you recently gave out some fabulous eco awards to some very worthy candidates. So there are awards for climate champion, climate change champion, nature champion, and many more. Why was it important for Ecology Ottawa to give these awards out?
We're so proud of these awards. We just launched them for the first time this year, and we'll continue again next year. And it was really important to give them out. We announced them on in the week of Earth Day, and the nominations came all from Ottawans. So people coming forward and saying, my neighbor is doing this amazing work, or have you heard of this person? And coming forward to nominate their fellow Ottawans for these awards. And then we had to make the very difficult decisions of who would be the recipients, because there were so many fantastic initiatives and individuals across the city. And what's important about this, there are a few reasons that these awards are important. One is celebrating what's being done. It's so easy to get demoralized, or for people that are doing this work not to be recognized or see the impact they're making. And this is a way to celebrate that and hopefully reinvigorate people and bring attention to some of the initiatives that are happening. That's another one, is around Earth Day, when people are paying attention, is say, hey, did you know this is happening in your own city and that you can play a part in this, or that you could do something similar in your neighborhood? So it's meant to be inspirational as well, and bring education and awareness around some of the issues, like, for example, pollinator gardens, which came up in the awards. And the other one for us is to really show with these awards that these, there are admirable individuals out there, but this is a collective action. So we're trying to say these aren't winners. It's not like there's one person who wins on climate action and that everyone else is, left behind. This is truly collective action, and the only way that we're going to see the progress we need to make is through collective action. So we wanted to kind of inspire people through these individuals, and then get more people involved in these type of climate or nature actions across Ottawa. So we really look forward to returning next year in April around Earth Month and Earth Day again with these, and growing this so that we can celebrate even more Ottawans across the city.
Yeah, great initiative, and I don't envy you picking out of a lot of great candidates, but we'll put a link into some of the winners there, and congratulations to all of them. So we can
Thanks.
see.
And I'll just add too, we had people, but we did also have places and species that people nominated, like birds or their favorite park.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, and that was very intentional, because what we wanted to do is say, what's your favorite bird species? Who needs protection? So it's not just about applauding them or celebrating them. It's also about saying we cherish these spaces and we love these creatures, and we actually need to take action to protect them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can see there's a lot going on in Ecology Ottawa. Your days must be very full. Good thing it's long days right now, and you can enjoy lots of sun.
Right.
I know you're putting together your next 3-year plan at Ecology Ottawa that's coming out this fall. So tell us a little bit about that.
This is really exciting. We're looking at 3 years ahead, and making sure that we have a strong strategy. And of course, there are always fluctuations and disruptions. The last few years have definitely underscored that for all of us. So there is flexibility built into it, so that we can respond really rapidly to threats that come up, which we see as a core role for us at Ecology Ottawa. But we also want to make sure we have a really strong strategy. So we're working with our fantastic board of directors, our fantastic staff, to get all of their input, but we're also inviting all of our stakeholders to provide input into this so that we're hearing from people and they can express their insights and expertise from, whether they're a donor or a funder, or they've signed a petition, or they're an observer or a volunteer. Whatever people's relationships with Ecology Ottawa, we really want their feedback. So there is a survey right now, which is open till June 15th, where people can talk to us about the issues they think we should most focus on. If they had to pick one, and which is obviously not a real decision because all of these issues are interconnected, but if they had to pick one issue, which would what would they encourage us to focus on? How do they feel about how political we are? How do they feel about how we communicate with our stakeholders? There's a whole host of questions there where we invite people to give their very honest feedback so that we can hear from our very important stakeholders without whom we would not exist, and incorporate their thinking into our strategic plan. And then later, near the end of the year, we will share that strategy so that people can see our vision and a really, we hope, powerful and compelling and inspiring vision for creating change so that Ottawa is more resilient and inclusive and green.
Yeah, what an exciting opportunity to sort of take stock and look at the next 3 years. And we'll put a link for those folks that want to fill out that survey and provide some input there. So thanks so much, Alice-Irene. There's so much great work that you're doing at Ecology Ottawa, you and your whole team. Any
Thanks,
final
Nick.
work? Yeah, no worries. It's been great to work with you. Any final words for our Synapsity audience? Anything we missed that you folks are working on?
Just a huge thanks for having me. It's so lovely to chat about this and kind of take a bird's eye view of what we're doing right now. So thanks so much for having me, and thanks to everyone for listening. And so grateful for every single person that plays a role in the Ecology Ottawa community.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll be excited to stay tuned to all the great work that Ecology Ottawa is doing.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for watching Community Connections, brought to you by Synapse. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Until next time, stay connected.